Hi, welcome to the Success Formula Podcast. I'm Gentry Kelly, and this is my husband,
Sean Lynch, her sidekick.
And we have one of my favorite people in the world here inside of the room with us. We are so freaking excited to introduce you to Brittany Franklin from Abbeville, Louisiana. I feel like I cannot introduce her without saying it with a Cajun accent.
I love your fake Cajun accent, by the way.
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good. But anywho, I want you to tell us, why did we invite you today? What did we want you to talk about? What are you so great at? And what are you the founder of?
Well, I'm honored to be invited, first of all, and I love both of you to the moon and back. It's been awesome to watch both of your journeys and to be able to pick your brains, and vice versa. But I am the founder and CEO of Sky High for Kids, which is a large nonprofit now that is fighting childhood cancer, which is the number one cause of death by disease for our children in the United States. And unfortunately, 400,000 children diagnosed around the world every year. I'm pretty darn good at asking people for money, so I think that's why you invited me on the podcast.
Well, you're actually one of the very first people when we discussed who's the top 5 that we want to have on. Your name got brought up first.
Really?
I know. Look at this. And she's so, what's the word? She doesn't, she's shocked to hear that. But yeah, you were one of the very first people. You're such a great speaker. Now you're a 75, what do you call that? Announcer?
That's pretty good, Gentry. You need to go to
Auctioneer.
school, auctioneering school.
Auctioneer. Yeah, Sean and I have attended many events where she's the auctioneer. And if you ever need an auctioneer, she is your girl. So if you ain't pulling enough money, this girl can pull in the money. I'm talking about every time she has an event. This is like millions of dollars that she brings in for her own foundation and other people's that she does this for too, and doubles. And I'm sure you sometimes triple what they've been able to bring in without you. So you good at that shit.
How long is an auctioneer school?
10 days.
Okay.
I went to America's Auctioneer Academy in Dallas, Texas, and it was 10 days. And everyone assumes that it's 10 days of just chanting and practicing the chant, but it is 100% hardcore business school. So you chanted in the morning, or you practiced chanting in the morning, but throughout the day, it was real estate, the legal side of auctions, it was professional cattle, it was high-end horses.
Well, didn't you tell you they teach you how to promote yourself too? Didn't you tell me that's part of it too? Like how you get
full day
gigs
of marketing yourself.
Yeah.
How to create a website, everything related to running any type of business. But the legal side of being an auctioneer is intense, and you have to know all of the laws and regulations down to the wildlife and fisheries and gaming, because this involves everything from a storage unit where people fault on their storage units and storage wars.
We do that.
Yeah. Okay. So you hire an auctioneer for that, and maybe there's a clerk.
We just do online auctions now. So if somebody defaults on the rent,
well, you should try with Brittany. Maybe you'll get top dollar.
I love you, but I'm not going to sell the
crap inside of there.
A $50 storage unit.
Pull out a dead body.
But it was wild because I didn't think I'd learned that much about business.
Do they teach you how to market and pull more money out of people? So whenever you're give me more money.
Yes, there's an art to it, especially on the benefit side, right? So I focus on benefit auctioneering. I'm not an auto auctioneer. I'm not selling purebred cattle or land.
You're pulling at the heartstrings of people.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so obviously mission first, impact first. As long as you're putting that in the face of the potential donor, normally that helps secure the largest donations, right? And I think people forget about that. And so when I consult with organizations like I did 2 hours ago, I have to remind people that, yes, the flowers and your silent auction items and all the bells and whistles are important, but it's not as important as making sure that everybody understands the impact and where their dollar is going.
And I'm always surprised when I go to some of these galas and events. We don't go to as many anymore, but we did. A lot of times they don't even have a live auction. And I think live auction, it just adds so much more excitement to the room, especially you. I think you're born, this is a natural talent for you. You knew this is always going to be your thing. And watching you in this school on social media, I was dying laughing. I was like, I cannot believe that she's doing this, but it is freaking great because I've been a part of Sky High and, either donating products or I was a guest speaker one time you invited me. I think that was 6-7 years ago?
Already. It was 8 years ago.
Yeah. It was 2016, 17 when we met, and I fell in love with Brittany. We fell in love with each other. It was on our first date while I was doing her makeup from a connection through a friend of hers in Louisiana.
Yes.
And we instantly hit it off, and she told her friend, your friend told you got to meet this girl. Y'all are the same person.
So go on Facebook and watch this girl. She is crazy just like you.
I've been a part of Sky High in some sort of way along the way, and I just think it's amazing what you do. If you watch my coffee talks in the morning, you've seen my Sky High cup. This is Brittany. Brittany is the founder. She is the woman who started it all. So I want to take it all the way way back at the beginning here, because something I didn't know until about 6 months ago is how this really started. You just recently told me your story in one of our little morning coffee chats.
I actually don't know that either.
I know.
And
I
I've
think
known
it'd
you
be
for a long
interesting.
time.
You don't know the story,
I know.
Michelle.
I know where you used to work, but I don't know how it transitioned, and I don't know how you even thought to start the
So
foundation.
Sean was in oil and gas, or
Yeah.
is in oil and gas. You were in oil and gas. Still, I feel like wrapped up in all this with everybody that you know in your
Yeah.
contacts.
Yes.
So he met you when you were still in oil and gas working for,
Yes.
can I say the name of the
we
company?
met at David
Yeah.
DeRude's Christmas party at
Yes.
Brennan's.
Yes.
The big annual bash at
I
Brennan's.
thought you already
And
had the foundation then, though, didn't you?
yes, so David donates to Sky High every
Yes.
year. And so we're one of the recipients from his Christmas luncheon every year. And that's where I run into Sean. I'm like, what are you doing here?
Oh yeah, I bought an oil and gas company.
And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm in this gig now. So
Which is hilarious, as we laughed about that on one of the other podcasts. Like, Sean literally knew nothing about oil and gas, and he came home and said, I'm buying into a frack company. I was like, do you even know what fracking means? He's
Yeah,
like, no,
everybody-
but I'm going to figure it out.
doesn't matter. You can teach yourself. Just about
Everybody in
anything.
Houston's in oil and gas.
Yeah.
So take us all the way back to day one. I want to hear where you come from. Where is Abbeville,
Ooh.
Louisiana? People who don't know, tell us where you started, a little about your life, growing up, and how you ended up getting into this area in the world.
It's wild. I don't really sometimes believe that I'm where I am today just because of my upbringing and kind of that, stereotypical where I should be.
Yep.
Which is like maybe 3 or 4 kids living in a trailer next to my parents.
Which is such a
That's
good part of
just-
your story, because that's what this
It
podcast is supposed to be
is.
about, is to inspire people.
It is.
Like, you can't use that as an excuse or a crutch or
No.
an excuse.
Absolutely
Like,
not.
we both came from not a lot. You came from a lot less. And
lot
look where you're
less.
at today.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that is part of your building blocks, right? It is who you are today. It made you who you are.
I actually feel like that's an advantage, is to come from nothing and then have to struggle a little bit. That's what
Then
makes
you have a
me
better
nervous.
understanding
it makes
for
me
people who are
nervous
struggling. Yeah.
for our kid. I'm like,
Well, and I totally agree. And we watch so many parents today coddle and shield
Yeah.
and spoil and
Try really hard not
there's
to do
this
that to
level
my
of
child.
entitlement. And I mean, I walk around sometimes and interact with families, and there's like, I don't think anyone teaches their kids to say yes ma'am and no ma'am and
No.
yes sir and no sir anymore. And I'll tell you right now, that's going to be number one rule low in this house.
And that's actually really
with
big in
Stevie.
Louisiana that we don't
Oh,
have in
it's
Texas.
huge.
In Texas,
It's
it's very
huge.
big on respect of your elders, and we don't really have that as much in Texas. So that's why
Yeah.
you're not seeing. I think it's a state thing.
Yeah,
A
everybody's
real-
like,
a real
yeah.
southern-
I'm like, no, it's yes ma'am.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a long story. So I grew up in Abbeville, Louisiana, which technically Mouton Cove, Louisiana, which is a very, very small community, primarily rice, crawfish, cattle. There's one of the largest alligator farms, the Sagrera Alligator Farm there, that I grew up like literally down the road from. And this community is a suburb of Abbeville, which is south of Lafayette, Louisiana. So if you're on I-10 and you're leaving Houston, you're going to go through Baytown. At some point, you're going to hit Lake Charles, and then you're going to go to Lafayette, and then you'll get to Baton Rouge, then New Orleans.
And
so
I think
it's
I
kinda
told
like
you-
the trail down I-10. So
When we first met, you were really surprised. I don't know if you remember this. But you're like, I'm from Abbeville. I'm like, oh, I used to do makeup in Abbeville. You're like, how the hell do you know what Abbeville, Louisiana is? I used to actually go to the trailer park and do makeup for my clients.
I believe
In
you.
the trailer park.
I
Everybody would
believe
come
you now.
over, and I would do makeup and teach them all how to do like Mary Kay style. And I would drive my car over there. And I was in Louisiana all the time, so I'm very, very familiar.
Look, it's a beautiful community. Okay,
It's a really pretty place.
Again, it's a beautiful place. And so this small town. Okay, then there's the Mouton Cove, which is all the farming, right? And so it was myself, my brother Mark, my mom and dad, Angie and Kevin, and my parents also came from not much. So my dad was one of 4 boys. They grew up, on a small farm. My grandfather passed away when my dad was 15, actually in a bar fight. He was punched in the neck and it killed him. It's a very sad story. He was in a coma, I think, for 22 days. I'll never forget my dad telling me that story. But so never got to meet my grandfather, but they grew up hard life. So my dad quit high school in 9th grade and went to work offshore in oil and gas, 7 and 7. And when my mom got pregnant for me, they got married. They were very much in love. And then had my brother Mark, and then my dad built our beautiful little brick house on 10 acres of land, and we literally lived off of the land growing up. When my father was in a helicopter crash, headed to a platform to show actually the owner of the company at the time his work, his instrumentation work, the helicopter went down in the Gulf of Mexico.
I don't even know this story.
Yep, went down the Gulf of Mexico. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. It was freezing cold. They crashed near a one-man platform. So it was a miracle that the guy went outside to smoke a cigarette and have a cup of coffee and see this helicopter go down in the middle of the Gulf. Everyone survived, but everyone was really badly injured. So my dad had a broken back and lost his career. And obviously he didn't graduate and even do much of high school. So all my dad knew how to do after that was work really, really hard in whatever it could be, whether it was dirt work or farming crawfish or building barns. I mean, that's
happen,
where,
yeah.
and that's where my work ethic comes from, right? My dad always taught us, doesn't matter if you go to a fancy school, it doesn't matter, how much money you have, as long as you outwork your neighbor.
Sean,
You can literally do anything.
I would agree with that 100%.
Do you agree with that, Sean?
I do.
Sean didn't go to college.
I didn't go to college. Well,
I didn't graduate college. I went for 4
months, maybe.
years. I
Yeah.
left 12 hours before I was supposed to, but it's another
doesn't
part of
matter.
my story. It doesn't matter.
I still have nightmares that I missed a class and I didn't graduate.
I was English and history thinking I'm going to law school, and now I am the CEO and running one of the largest nonprofits in the country and built a very successful career in oil and gas. And I'm a professional auctioneer. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
He thinks you go ahead and tell him what you think about the education
I
industry.
just don't think the education system is, I don't even think you need it, but the traditional education system is like just so outdated. I think we're going to try to do something different with Liam. So we'll see.
Let's talk about that because I have ideas for Stevie as
Okay.
well. I mean,
So-
it's just one of those things where how in the world do we get to college? Okay, so I'll get back to my story, but I moved out at 16, 17 years old, and I had an apartment with my roommate at 18. I had the idea behind opening a bank account. I knew how to balance a checkbook. I knew how to funnel and source furniture.
I don't even know how you knew that.
I
I
paid-
learned nothing. I feel like
Wait,
I knew
I
nothing.
paid my
I
own
didn't know
car
that either.
note. I knew how to get insurance. And you know why? Because my dad and my mom
Not from
took the
school.
time
Yeah.
to teach me that at the dining room table. I had to balance a checkbook at like 10. My dad sat down and taught me how to balance a checkbook. And you do not learn any of that in high school.
That's his
And
frustration.
then you're expected to go to college and get a credit card, but nobody tells you about the 26% interest rate.
They don't want you to know.
No, but I know.
They
It's
don't want you to know.
there's so much behind. I'm on the same page. You want to do a whole hour podcast just on that? I'm with you. But if it wasn't for my parents teaching us some really hard life lessons and really what I consider adulting, how many people just do not understand how to adult? I mean, I wouldn't have been as advanced as I was. I mean, my roommate couldn't even take out the trash.
Well, why are we also reliant on a CPA, for example? Why are we not taught how to do our own taxes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Just
lot. I mean,
in
there's
the
so much that
grand
goes
scheme
into
of
this.
things. You know?
I don't know. I think if
Basic
there's
life
only like a
skills.
handful of things that you only need to be successful. It doesn't even matter what field they decide to go into. But if they have communication
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of leadership and a little bit of finance, they'll kill it in any field they go into.
I
It doesn't
agree.
even matter if they do want to go to school and be a lawyer. They'll still be that much better and they'll open their own practice. And it's just, there's no need for the traditional education system anymore. I just don't think so.
I definitely don't use algebra, put it that way.
Or
You know what I'm
geometry.
saying?
But that's the problem is my parents didn't teach me anything either. So when I was 18, it's like I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Same thing. I didn't never have a credit card. I didn't even know about an interest rate. So I
Right.
had to learn all that from 18 on.
And these
Yeah.
kids are getting in this credit card debt like I
Yeah,
was at
it's like-
19,
but you don't
thousands
know.
of dollars.
It's
and
not
I
their
had-
fault.
Wow.
I was
Or-
depressed because I couldn't get out of it. I was like, how do I ever get out of this $2,000 debt? And then you feel like you're on the hamster wheel and you can't ever progress with life because you have this fear. How am I ever going to pay off this debt because you're not
Right.
taught what you're
Or
doing
how about
to yourself.
student loans for crying out loud?
Oh,
My
no.
dad had to do things in cash, okay, because that's just what he had to do after he crashed in a helicopter and just all he knew how to do. So his big thing was, you don't want to owe money to anybody. You don't want to be in debt. So I went to college. I worked 2 jobs and went to school full time. And I went to a college I could afford, and I paid every single semester on my own. $3,000 a semester to go to ULL, baby.
I know
I'm a
exactly
raging
what it
Cajun. And I may have not graduated.
is. Is that on
but
college?
I went,
Is that on college in Lafayette?
yes, girl.
I know where that is.
Yeah, girl. And but think about it. They don't tell you. I was told to go to LSU and
Yeah.
go to law school in New York and all
Spend
these
hundreds
things.
of thousands
Do you know
of
how much
dollars,
money
yeah.
that would have cost me?
Yeah,
No.
hundreds.
My dad was like, you probably want to go somewhere you can afford. I can't pay for it. So, and I'd been working since I'm 13 for crying out loud, but I knew I needed to pay that. I did not want to come out of school with debt. And I don't think my roommate even knew what the word debt meant, right? So anyway, back to how I grew up. So mom didn't go to college, okay? So she raised us, and dad just did whatever we needed to do, make ends meet. It's funny because he bought a bunch of rental properties in our small community and was making money through rental properties, the crawfishing, which was 6 months out of the year. I mean, all these things. And we didn't know, truthfully, that we were quote unquote poor, because if we wanted a dirt bike for Christmas, my dad did what he had to do to work his you-know-what off, and we had the dirt bike under the Christmas tree. Do you know what I'm saying? So anyway, fast forward, I'm showing lambs in 4-H, which was a huge passion of mine, played basketball, and I shot sporting clays. Okay, so I definitely was not interested in joining the Cattle Festival pageant. Okay, in Louisiana, every festival that is around,
it's
every
all
parish,
about pageants.
it's a little, but you know, it's like your little backyard pageant. It's so fun, it's amazing, but it's definitely not Miss Texas. Okay, my mom's like, you're gonna do this. You're in rubber boots and in the field, and you got a shotgun on your shoulder all the time. Like
so much like my story. My mom
teach you how to be a girl, and I'm like, okay, mom, whatever. I don't want to do this, but okay. I showed my lamb that morning at the Cecil McCory building in our show, and that afternoon I had a big pink dress on, heels, and now my mom had done it right. We had a neighbor in town that had won several local pageants, and so she quote unquote trained me on how to walk, and interview is a huge part of this, by the way. And so before I know it, I'm answering questions in the interview, and of course, my hobby is dove hunting and all these
Your answers are very different than the rest of the girls.
So these guys, I remember the men judges being like, there's no possible way. Her mom wrote this, and he's like, so what kind of, shotgun do you use to dove hunt? And I'm like, oh, a crack barrel 410. You only get to load one shell at a time, and I'll never forget his eyeballs got like this big, and I'm like, I love dove season.
No wonder you got in oil and gas. It's like,
exactly, right?
Fit right in.
Oh, she does fit the mold for that.
Well, I end up winning the pageant, and I'm just like, wait, that's not my number. That's not me. Yes. Ooh. All these other girls were mad as hell.
Because they were like born and bred to do this, and you just had this idea 5 minutes ago.
Oh, and the moms were even more mad.
It's like a
Here's
cheer
my
mom.
little country
Cheer
mom out there, it's like, Anyway, well, that really changed the direction of my life without me knowing it. But because we weren't wealthy, or we didn't have the means to be able to volunteer and donate in the community, I was now introduced to a whole new world of volunteering and donating what I could, which was my time. And as the Dev Cattle Queen, that was a requirement. You went to the elderly homes and you set
it's all about
hairs
community, community and give back.
And let me tell you, I fell in love with this. I mean, I already loved being around people, and I wasn't shy, but I loved helping people. And I think that's when God kind of first showed me my vocation, right? And fast forward a year later, I'm still showing lambs, but now I'm loving the pageant thing, making all these new friends. I get crowned Miss Acadiana. Technically, I was first runner-up. I did not win, but she went on to forfeit her crown because she won another pageant, and you can't be two queens at one time, ladies.
Uh-oh.
And so I got crowned in the living room of Miss Billy Menard's
By default,
home.
we'll take it.
I'll take it. And that's what brought me to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
So is Debbie the woman I've heard you talk about that is the one who's your inspiration behind all of this, the one that pushed you to go do something?
Billy.
Oh, it's Billy.
Yes,
okay,
Billy Menard.
Okay, got it.
Who has Beanies for St. Jude. That's her organization.
Okay, got it.
And she is a local pageant director, and her queens were required to raise money for St. Jude.
So was she actually the trainer for all the girls? What was her affiliation with you in the pageant world?
She puts on the pageants.
Okay. So
she's actually someone that sponsors these and hosts the pageant.
Okay, got it.
Right? She's a director, kind of like the director of Miss USA, right?
Yep.
And so her passion was St. Jude for many reasons, and that's when I was introduced to the world of childhood cancer that I did not know existed. Why would I know, right?
You were never affected directly at this point.
Never.
Yeah, and did she invite you to the hospital first, or?
Well, so the queens were required to raise money, and so with our sash and crowns on and our little T-shirts, we had buckets, and we stood on the four corners in Kaplan, Louisiana, and car by car by car, just like the firefighters do with their boots, we asked people for money. And whether it was a penny, a quarter, or a $10 bill, I mean, we were over the moon with whatever we got put in, whatever went in our buckets that day. Raised the money. We caravan for 7 hours from South Louisiana all the way to Memphis, Tennessee. Sean, I had never been north of I-10 in my entire life. Okay? Never been on a plane. We went in my Honda Civic.
That's and
we were so excited to go to St. Jude. But I think for me at that time, I was 15, I was more excited to go to Memphis, Tennessee.
Just to get out of Abbeville, because you've never seen the city outside of Lafayette.
Yeah. Or maybe you went to
world.
Gulf Shores, because that's just where everybody in Louisiana goes on vacation, right? If you're rich, you go to 30A and Rosemary Beach. We didn't know about that world.
We're going there for the first time next month.
We didn't know about that. We went to Gulf Shores, so we stayed at the Phoenix. But so we get to Memphis, Tennessee, and I'll never forget when we entered the doors of the Ronald McDonald House, which is the housing facility that only houses patients of St. Jude in Memphis specifically. My entire life changed. I was now surrounded by children that were either on walking sticks, had feeding tubes, no hair. I mean, I remember being like, what is going on? I was so confused because they told us what we were going to do, but they didn't really tell us what we were going to do, right? Or what we'd experienced. There was no coaching behind the emotional.
What you're about to see.
Yeah. And 53 children live in this house, all under one roof. There's 2 major kitchens. Everyone shares washers and dryers. And these families are from around the world. But a lot are from Louisiana. And a lot are from, Alabama and Arkansas. And so all of a sudden I'm immersed in just a life-changing experience that I really can't explain. Besides, it's just surreal. And you meet the parents and you meet the kids and you meet their siblings, and I was left not understanding why. And I remember saying, this isn't fair. Why does this little girl who's the same age as me not get to participate in the pageant? Or why can't she go dove hunting next weekend for opening season? She's fighting for her life. And we donated our $5,000 the next day at St. Jude. We received a tour of one of the world's most amazing places that you'll ever get to see if you get to visit. It's mind-blowing what they built. And I left there saying, like, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. And so fast forwarding, my parents go through a horrific divorce, which led my mom to addiction. And so my mom spent a lot of time in rehab during my senior year of high school and several times after that. My dad went into really deep depression, and my brother ended up being expelled from 2-3 schools. The divorce was very, very ugly. And I remember kind of putting on blinders and I went to work.
Pretend like it didn't happen and just raising yourself and just going. Go.
Just not stopping. I mean, I started working at Edie's serving biscuits at 16 years old, like receiving a paycheck. I'd skip school to go make $60 so I could buy groceries because my parents were now not together. My mom moved us to this little shack in Abbeville, and it was just a mess. And I knew I needed to put food on the table, and while my mom was out partying, I was taking care of my brother. It was just chaotic.
You lived with your mom full time and
Yep, we went with my mom. So it was me, my mom, my brother. We lived down the road from my grandparents. That was a whole hoorah. And my dad was just stuck in a sinkhole, which he's still stuck in the same sinkhole 20-something years later. So I had to either fight for what I knew was right and the path I wanted to go down, or allow myself to repeat the cycle, right? And so when I got my job at Edie's, I really credit a lot of where I am today to the people that I worked with. And my boss at the time was Stanley Lease, who owned the restaurant, and Crystal and Holly, and all the girls that are part of my founding board today.
I was about to say,
was who I worked with.
Ladies Who Brunch, that was a part of your video too.
Yes.
I saw pictures with them too. And
amazing. They were all older than me. They were already graduating college, but they worked at Edie's during their time.
What did they do to support? Was it just emotional support, letting you off? Were they making the introductions for you for,
So, Crystal Mafus, who was the manager of the restaurant, she literally was graduating college. I moved in with her. I was 17. I was still in high school, so I'd drive back and forth. Yeah. Then just the exposure to faith, to family, to work ethic, customer service, right? I mean, Stanley was there every single day to greet his customers, and I loved that so much. And he
We do too.
instilled that in us. He
Yeah.
really did.
We
He's
love
like,
that old school that doesn't exist anymore. I try to teach my girls, and we're taking steps to go. That is so important, even with what you do today with your donors,
right.
to have that foundation that these youngins just don't know how to do. So
Yeah.
I think that's so good. I think that's maybe why I see that in you now, is from having that,
Yeah.
embedded in you at a young age,
And my-
how it's supposed to be.
My dad definitely instilled the work ethic, but Stanley taught me what it meant to see what the big picture
Mm-hmm.
meant, right? So like if you had 6 tables and it was always packed at Edie's. Okay, it was a biscuit
People who
place
don't know,
that
people who don't know what Edie's is. What is Edie's?
Oh my gosh, it's the best biscuit you will ever eat.
So if
But
you're
it's-
ever in Abbeville,
well, this is in Lafayette,
Lafayette?
technically, yeah. So if you're ever in Lafayette off Bendale Road and you want
I've never
the
been to
best
Edie's.
biscuit you've ever eaten in your life with fresh honey on top, or a blueberry biscuit with white
Sean
icing,
would love that.
listen to me. Or you want pork roast stuffed inside of a biscuit? I mean, with just gravy
One thing
pouring
he
out.
says, he can't do Louisiana food.
Listen to me. It is unbelievable. I mean, Stanley's now frying catfish and shrimp in the mornings, and that's what goes on the side of your biscuit. It's wild. But people lined up, and you had to know their name before they walked in the door and their order. Stanley, like that, he was like, you better know it. You
I love
better
that.
get it. And that's
really good.
People
That's
are like,
like-
how do you remember what happened 14
I
years
said
ago
that
and
yesterday.
that guy's name? And I'm like, Stanley taught us the art of giving yourself like a little trick, like,
Reference their name to something that you remember.
exactly.
When we go
Or
to the nail
eyes
shop,
or whatever.
I went there yesterday. The lady's like, "Oh, how's your son doing?" Da, 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 and just starts asking questions. And she knows I like my Tina, and I never get Tina because Tina's always booked. And I walked in an odd hour yesterday. She called Tina back on the microphone. She's literally got one of those like karaoke microphones. She calls the girls back in, and Tina comes out, and I'm like, "Tina!" I go, "Tina, how does she remember that? Like, you haven't done my nails in 2 years because you're always so busy." And she's like, "Her memory." But remembering that kind of stuff makes you feel special.
It does. And there's an art behind that. And it's so important in our world of donors today, right? I mean,
Yep.
we are like etching this in our employees' brains that if you know that Margaret Como grew up in South Louisiana, but now she's been at CMT Music for 22 years, and you know her story and you write down and you memorize and then you put it in her little profile, you should know that. So when you see Margaret and you say, wow, I mean, I can't believe you've been here for 22 years. And then they're like, damn.
Huge.
Sure, remember that? So Stanley taught us that. And he was real big on faith and and flexibility too, right? Like we were all girls that all had a lot of stuff going on in our lives. It's like he kind of took us in, I mean, Holly and Brooke had children right out of high school. They were single moms. I mean, there was just so many stories behind all of us. And Stanley was like our leader. So anyway, I'm working at Edie's. I'm going to go to law school, because I thought that equaled success.
This is the first time I've ever heard about the law school, but man, that would have
Yeah, I
been good
didn't
for
know
you.
that
I'm
either.
glad
Oh,
you didn't
I'd
go
have-
that direction.
I know,
that
me
would have
too,
been really,
but boy, I'd
that would
have
have been really
crushed it.
You
would
be
have been a
representing
really good
my
attorney.
ass.
I just wanted to go in the courtroom and just
Tear it up.
wow and win it all. And so I watched the practice a lot on TV growing up, right? So I was going to move to New York, drive a black Mercedes, and be a kick-ass courtroom attorney. I worked for a lawyer in college in between, like while Edie's and school. And he was like, all right, read this deposition. And I'm like, what is that? It was like this thick, right? And by the way, I don't read that well, and I can't spell at all.
Same girl. You in good company over here.
And so I remember, like reading all this. And he's like, tell me what you, and I just sat down. And I was like, wait, but
This
when
is
do
too
we go
much.
to court?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. We try to settle. We don't want to go to court. And I'm like,
Your dreams are crushed at this point.
I mean, I literally was like, I'm not going to law school. But then I thought, well, no, I have to go to law school, because what else am I going to do, right? I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I recognize that at a very young age. Can't do math very well, can't spell, and I'm really bad at science. So as much as I want to be a veterinarian and I love animals, I'm probably not going to make it in school. So I'm not going to be a veterinarian either. I can talk it up. I'm going to be a lawyer. So
You
Sounds
couldn't
like
read.
Sean.
You couldn't read very well, but your communication is like outstanding.
right? I don't know.
You couldn't read or spell.
no, you really
but-
are. You know
No.
that. That is your gift.
It's one of my
Yeah,
gifts.
I'm a little
Yeah.
jealous.
It's one of
yeah.
my gifts. Oh, really?
I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, Sean's gift is not having emotion. It's great. I love
Yeah.
it, and he loves it.
But it's
He
not
has zero
communication.
emotion in business. It's not communication.
It's going
but
to
he's
take me
learning.
years of practice, and then I'll be good.
When Sean said he
You
wanted,
will be good, because
So-
if
No,
you
I will.
practice,
Yeah.
you can.
So I told you about this podcast idea a year ago,
you did,
Give me a year or two.
and I said, "Would you be on it a
I'll
year
be
ago?"
of
Right?
course.
then I kind of dropped the ball. I'm just not, when it
Well-
comes to like big dreams like that, I'm not always an executor like he is. I always say he's a obsessive compulsive mass executor. Sounds bad, but when he
Well,
has an
I
idea,
mean-
he goes all the way with it. And he said,
Yeah.
fine, I'll do it with you. I'm like, there's no way that you are going to have a social media and get behind the camera and you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. He has said to me the last few days since starting his Instagram page, he's like, I absolutely understand what a time suck this is. He's
Oh,
like, this is so time consuming. This
it's
is hard.
so-
He's like, I'm trying to message every single person back that messages me. I was like, I get hundreds of those a day, son.
It's wild.
That's because I'm gonna master it. So just give me a year.
You know what's going to happen, right? I can't.
He's gonna get more followers than me.
I can't get to 12,000 followers to save my life. And, we're
No.
actually saving lives. And I guess that's not as important as some of the other stuff on social media, like I said the other
You
day.
say what you
but-
want to say. Showing your outfit that you bought on Amazon.
And
I'm gonna figure it out.
and I'm like, oh,
Take some
Gentry,
notes
what do
from
you
him.
do? Da-da-da. And Sean's going to have like 1 million
Oh, yeah, he
followers.
is.
Watch what's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
happen.
I am.
So
Okay, good, well,
Sean's
then you can teach
so
us.
Sean's very first podcast where he was on someone else's pod. He was a guest on our friend Mike and Bo's, the Sasha Casey's business partners.
yeah. Okay.
And they took clips from that. The third or fourth clip,
Went
he's talking
viral,
about
right?
Christmas lights, where he's just talking about how his Christmas light guy makes like, I don't know, $300,000 every season. Now he has crews, blah, blah, blah. That across all platforms, was it 5 million views?
But it wasn't what I said. It was the way they clipped it, the hook that they put on there,
Right.
and
So
that's
there's
what I've
a
been.
marketing-
That's what I've been telling.
So
There's a
Sean's
lot
like,
of
this
marketing.
is what I've been telling you. And this is what I'm trying to tell Brittany too. We talk about these
Yes,
kind of
we
things
do.
too. She's like, why am I so challenged, And I think people just want some of the mindless stuff at the end of the day, and they just like watching
Right.
shit shows, for lack of better ways to put it.
Yeah.
And it's why those
I
effed up
agree.
videos that you get through your feed have like millions and millions of views because people
That's
just want to
true.
see people
There's
get
a
hurt or
bigger
whatever.
market for
Yeah.
that,
And it's
for sure.
unfortunate
Versus
because
like,
for someone
hey,
who's
can
doing
everybody-
something like you,
Exactly.
you want them to follow along. You want to be able to gain more followers because we all know followers equals more money, and more money for the foundation means saving more lives. And that is incredibly frustrating for you and for me to see it happening too. But
Right.
all it took was this one video for me. I don't even know if I've told you recently.
you did.
I think today I'm at maybe 80,000 followers.
I'm like,
And this is in 2 months. I went
Blew
from
up.
28,000 to 80,000 followers as of today. And it was just from one video that had the right kind of hook. So it's like you just got to watch like what's hitting for your friends and try to do something, even if it's not solely
Sean, you
based
gonna help
around.
me?
Yeah.
We're gonna learn together.
let's do it.
Trust me.
So I'm getting ready to graduate college. I literally have bought my cap and gown, and I never missed class. Like, I was the one that had to sit in the front and really work really hard to make that B. You know what I mean? Like, I had to work hard. And Miss Billy Menard finds me at Edie's and tells me that she's putting the old gang back together, like all the queens from my day that were all in college now, to raise $10,000 to purchase basketball goals, at the time VCRs, and all these things for the Ronald McDonald House, and make another donation to St. Jude. Will you help us? And I thought, oh my gosh, I was driving to Houston for Princeton Review courses to get ready for the LSAT because I knew that I had not failed, but I had bombed the ACT test 5 times. 5 times. I made A's and B's in school, but I could not get a 20 on my ACT test to receive the top scholarship in Louisiana.
I thought, what's the one that's like,
It's
SAT is what
yeah,
I'm thinking.
it's ACT
What's an
in
ACT?
Louisiana. I guess it's the same as
Okay. We had the SAT.
and I couldn't, I'd made a 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. I could not get there. Tutoring, all of it.
Oh, I've heard
I'm
Sunny talk about this with her
terrible at
girls.
taking
Yes,
the
yes,
time
yes.
test.
I remember this
They
now.
called 5 minutes and I had like 80 bubbles left.
There's no way, yeah.
Okay. So I thought, oh, how am I going to pass the LSAT to even get into law school? So I'm taking these courses. I'm working full time. I'm working at the crawfish place after work, school, and paying all my own bills. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this right now. And something, God just said, you need to do this. And I remembered being in the Ron McDonald House with all those children, and
That's what pushed
it
you.
just pushed me, right? So I thought, well, on Fridays, I'm shooting sporting clays with a bunch of my customers from Edie's. What if I put 4 people on a team? Everybody had to pay an entry fee, and we had a competition. This was in a time where sporting clay competitions were not a thing in the charity
And I'm
world.
dying because this is what you're known for even today. You're
Right.
still doing this one
Yes,
little idea, this very
literally.
moment, you're still doing
Still
20 years
doing it
later.
today. It wasn't a thing yet. Of course, sporting clays has existed for a long time, but not in a competition
event,
style to raise money. So I remember calling Wilderness Gun Club, finding out the pricing, what it would cost, this, that, and the other. And then I started consulting customers that were businessmen at Edie's. And I was like, Troy, Steve, like, have you ever been to one of these? What, I sit on the steps of the UL library. I write out a budget in red ink because we found it. We found the original piece of paper. It's at the office. Red ink. I'm writing down every cost that goes into this. And then I remember telling Crystal and all the girls, I'm going to host this sporting clay tournament and we're going to raise $10,000. I did the math. Here's how we raised the $10,000. There's no way we can't do this. I'm going to print out a flyer and Stanley's going to let us put it out at the restaurant.
So I have to know, like, do you remember what your budget was?
Oh, I didn't have a budget.
Not budget. Did you know what your numbers were? What the cost was to do this event?
It was like $4,000.
Okay, so you still were
Don't quote me. I'll look it up.
turning a profit for donation.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because I think this is something that, discourages a lot of people when they have an idea.
Yes.
Is when you can't get people to donate from the very beginning. Now you get most things donated when you have events.
Correct.
A lot of your things donated by
lot
sponsors. Did you have anyone in the very beginning when no one knew who you were? Was anybody giving you anything in the very beginning?
Yes. That's what was so amazing. So my customers that I served eggs and biscuits to every morning, I didn't realize, I had no idea, was the owner of Frank's Casing Crew, was the head guy at, Lourdes Hospital, was, the owner of Kilgore Marine. These were very prominent businessmen in the community, primarily in oil and gas, that I was serving, that I had no idea what they did in their real time. We just served breakfast and we talked and, okay, how you doing in school? And you know what I mean? Surface level conversation. And then when I came up with the idea and put together the first flyer and literally printed it on orange paper at FedEx Kinko's in Lafayette and put the first one on the booth in front of Donald Mosing, and I said, I'm raising money for St. Jude. Right? Which that's a national brand. Everybody knows who St. Jude is or what St. Jude is. Yep. Donald Mosing said, oh yeah, I'll donate. And he wrote a $2,500 check. And I was like,
pooping your pants.
I mean, I was like, wait, what? Wait.
I've never seen that much money in your whole life. A check that big.
I have to raise $10,000.
How many spots did you try to fill on that first tournament?
You had 4, you said, right?
Well, no, 4,000 was my low budget.
Like how many
spots?
How many 4 men on a team.
I got you.
Okay, so I did the math. We charged $500 a team. What's 10,000 divided by 500, Sean?
Math.
I can't do math.
20.
Okay, good job.
I dropped out of college.
So I needed 20 teams.
Let the college educated one.
I needed 20 teams, right? And then some little raffles and things. Well, Don writes a check for $2,500. And then Troy says, let's go talk to Charlie Kilgore and Ronnie Murphy.
Oh, so he's like wrangling his own people.
Yeah, go to that office. They each write a check for $2,500. So I'm like, wait, okay. And then that's it. The girls gathered. I told them I needed help. And the flyers start, entering the streets of Lafayette, Louisiana, and people start writing checks. Because mind you, I went with a sticky $100 bill that I made on a Friday morning at Edie's, sticky from the cinnamon that you can also put on top of the best biscuit you ever have in your life. Okay,
Sean
and went to Chase Bank and said, I need to open a bank account called Sky High for St. Jude, former name. And I don't know, I know how to open the bank account, but and they're like, okay, so you need an EIN number. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but okay.
Tell me where to go.
Okay, and I opened the bank account with that $100 bill. And then the checks, I had people, of course, write the checks to Sky High for St. Jude.
They're holding them for 2 weeks because they don't know who you are.
We were not a 501c3. I didn't even know what that was. Didn't know what a nonprofit was.
But again, just winging it and just making
it.
You got happen.
Well, look, you better just do it. Figure it out.
Exactly how I
so I'm
started
depositing the checks.
Yep.
Okay, and Crystal's like, okay, let's look at the bank account.
Who's Crystal? Then?
Crystal was our board vice president for 10 years and really a co-founder. Jill was a co-founder. Holly was a co-founder. And these were founding board members, right? We all work together. And so now we have the bank account. People are writing checks. And the teams start coming in. And the registration is on a piece of paper, okay? And I don't know what to do because now we have 40 teams registered with hundreds of people. I'm like, what are we going to do for food? What are we going to do for drinks?
And what year was this in?
2007.
Okay, so 2007.
Okay, and we go to Pat Case and Greg Case. They donated a golf cart at no cost. So we now had a raffle prize.
Okay, so wait a second. Is this why the carts come in? You always have these on all your raffles.
Yes,
I'm like,
this is where it came in.
Okay, is this the same people that still donate today? Or a different person? Because I feel
it's
like
a
you
new
always
owner,
have the golf carts or
yes.
the what do you call them? The little razor things.
Scotty and Brandy still donate today.
I love that.
From Cajun Carts in Lafayette. But so now we had a raffle prize. So then Holly's like, well maybe we need to have
that's
some
huge.
some auction items, right? And then we didn't have a band or a microphone. My grandfather, rest his soul, I love him, was part of Big Al and the Fatras.
I'm dying. I'm imagining a banjo. Is there a banjo? And
An accordion, girl. An
Is it
accordion.
Zydeco?
It's Zydeco. And Cajun, Cajun music. So they were now our band with no stage. We had a little microphone.
But I mean, kudos to you for coming up with all this stuff. Like how old are you at this point? 2007, I don't know.
21.
Math. So you're 21 years old. Like you've never done an event before. You've never thrown a party.
Nope.
And now you're catering an event with raffle prizes and
Yes.
auction items.
And we
I'm dead.
had Frank's come in and cook barbecue. All these companies came in and popped up their tents. They cooked food. We had a pirogue, which is a small canoe on two horseshoes, right? And I'll never forget, Deuce on LeBlanc iced down like all these cases of beer. It was in the middle of the parking lot. You shot your clays and then you could have your cold beer. We ran out of beer. We had to go to the store, get more beer. We raffled off Academy gift cards that were worth $20 and we were selling them for $1,000. Maybe we raffled off a couple of dates with Holly Citron. I don't know, but I'm just saying. We just did whatever we need to do. And we ate spaghetti on the floor the night before. And I remember all of us looking at each other like, what are we even doing? Like, what's happening?
It still works like that. You're still on the floor eating the night before, working till 3 or 4 a.m., waking up at 7 and turning these events around.
Correct. We got a little bit better than that now.
That's everyone's problem is the execution. If you just execute over just plan it, because everyone else will sit around, this is how we need to do it.
Yeah,
maybe we should do it this way. But then they don't ever do anything.
You have to start somewhere.
You have to just go and execute. And then that's the only way I know how to learn. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll just let's just do it.
You're going to learn through trial and error. You're going to learn through your mistakes.
That's why she's like, we talked about a podcast for a long time. I'm like, let's just set it up. We'll set it up next week. Let's start now.
But I went to college to learn
and
how to
I'm like, I'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
And I went to college to learn how to write a business plan. And I think that scares you off. Because again, just like you say about the education system, they're there to train you to be a follower, not a leader, right?
Right.
And I think, I started writing the business plan, my very first page, when I thought I wanted to start this cosmetic line. And I was like, you know what? If I go any further with this, I'm going to talk myself out of it. I'm going to get too scared when I start seeing the numbers. I don't want to look at the numbers. I just want to go. So I just charged at it. Kind of like you said, there was no plan. You were winging it from day one.
And I'll tell you right now, after 16 years of building and growing this organization, what I know now, there's no possible way I'd have started this organization.
Yeah, see,
no possible way.
Exactly what
that's
I
what
said
everyone. That's
there's
going to happen
no
to everyone.
way because it
and then also a plan is never.
thing.
Yeah, if you sit around and plan, it's never going to be exactly. Okay, I'm going to follow this plan. I'm going to follow this.
Except for Sean, he wouldn't be scared.
Which is why flexibility is so important.
If you were to look at where you're at today, that's exactly where you thought you were going to be. He has no fear on this kind of stuff. That's why he's so good at.
I feel like I'm going too slow.
Well, I do too. So
I feel like I wasted a lot of.
I had to have a conversation with her tonight. I was like, Pinky, promise me you're not going to buy one more effing property until you finish our 2 houses. I was like, you got this thing in your head
today
that you think you're going to be a big
I
fat
did.
loser.
I said, well, I got one under contract today.
Yes. And he was literally, I'm closing on one in Galveston tomorrow. I was like, Sean, I was like, you have something in your brain that thinks you're going to be a big fat loser if you don't have something new and grand and big every week.
No, there's something in our blood and we're kind of, it's like how you're wired, right? It's the same thing. Like, do you think my husband is really thrilled about me launching a full-blown professional auctioneering business? The answer is no, in case you're wondering, okay? It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it takes time away from him and my family, and right? But like, there's something that drives me towards, okay, I can do a couple of auctions a year and it's fun. And now I'm like, wait.
No, you're like, Sean, you're just not satisfied.
This is a
unless
business.
you have something new and big.
Yeah,
and
that sounds
now
terrible to
I
just
can
sit
pay
around and do
Stevie's. Yeah, I can pay Stevie's college in 4 years if I get 15 gigs a year. See that?
Boom shakalaka.
We were watching the is a Lamborghini movie about he used to make tractors.
Yeah, it was like a
and
Ferrari
it was like a
and a
documentary.
Lamborghini one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one scene where his wife is like, just you shouldn't do this and you should make tractors. It's just you're crazy. You don't even need to go make
And
this
his
car.
dad too was
And she's
the
like
same thing.
he starts yelling a little bit and he goes, you want to be normal like everybody else? Huh? What do you want me to be? Just normal? And so I don't know. It was just really, it's like
Yeah,
I got it. I'm like, see?
Yeah. I mean,
It's
do
like-
you want to be the norm? No, we're not the norm, right?
No, you're bred and raised to believe normal is what everybody wants to be, and people who
Right.
are abnormal, you wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
But really,
What is normal sitting around not contributing to anything, creating any jobs, not contributing to anybody out there and just doing nothing?
And
I mean, that's terrible.
for us at Sky High now have donated $31 million to support the childhood cancer community. That's wild, right? To think like, I'm like, wait, is that real? What if I would have never called Wilderness and would have gotten scared when they told me it's going to cost you, $35 a shooter. Now it's $65 a shooter, right? And I thought, well, gosh, I don't even have any money to start with. No, well, okay, I'm not worried about that.
And
I'm
that's
actually
what
going to go just ask people. Like
99% of the time,
we would not have invested in life-changing research in saving kids that deserve a future just like us, that are innocent, that are not immune to waking up tomorrow and being diagnosed with leukemia. That is the reality. Mom, I have a headache. Mom, I have a headache. Mom, I have a headache. I'm working with a family. They have 7 kids. And their daughter kept complaining about having a headache. And what do? Well, take some Tylenol. Or let's go to the doctor. Okay, figure it out. Oh, it's allergies. It's whatever. And yesterday, she had brain surgery to remove a pineoblastoma tumor and is going to go through chemo and radiation. Her IQ will drop 40%. She will have lifelong effects from chemotherapy on her organs. Her life has changed forever. And you don't think the 6 siblings' lives aren't changed? Mom and dad? It completely...
People nowadays think they have problems.
Exactly.
Because their phone doesn't work or something.
Yeah.
It's like, are you crazy?
Or
like
they couldn't get into Kincaid, or their kid could not get into Kincaid. That's what I heard the other day. And I just want to be like, okay.
You know what a real problem is? Yeah, do you know what a real problem is?
Your child was not diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma yesterday when he complained that his knee was hurting in baseball practice.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
I try to do that to myself too. When I'm being extra about something, I try to,
I have to do the same thing.
The Instagram page, I try to take it down to, and I do think of you. You're usually the one I go to and think of the people that I met through you, and it's just like, ooh, this could be so much worse today.
Yeah,
I could be finding out Liam is losing an arm or a leg or having a brain tumor.
Most problems have a solution, and you just can talk through, okay, that's easy, we'll fix it.
Right.
When you have a real problem, it's unfixable, and that's just, it's super sad. And so it makes you really appreciate life.
So if you're out there and you have an idea, I think the moral of the story is just do it. I mean, just figure it out. You're going to learn, by your mistakes. I mean, do you think we knew how to build a website? No. Do you think we knew how to, hire a CPA and a lawyer? No. I mean,
no,
but
you had nothing to lose. And I think a lot of people have nothing to lose, and they're still scared of losing something, but you don't have that to lose.
Definitely had nothing to lose. And my motto is the answer is always no unless you ask. And I will say, the people that were around me always cheered me to the finish line. I didn't have many naysayers or people that said, you can't do that. Oh, that's crazy.
But you didn't have a lot of social media back then either.
That's
really.
That's
which
really
is such a turn off to people today too.
No, but
I have
that's
way
really
more of
helpful,
that
though.
now. I have that now. Yeah. Like, oh, you think you're gonna start a podcast?
Misty from Alvin, a Sky High. I just talked about that this morning. Said I wasn't giving back enough. Those are the things that would make some people just give up and say, well, if I'm not doing enough, then I'm not going to do it at all.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But every little bit helps. And look at every person that you asked, you didn't think it was going to go anywhere. A lot of times, the big things that have happened in my career are things that I was like, this is a complete waste of my time going to this event. You meet that one person that changes your life and changes your business or changes your foundation. And I'm sure that's happened to you so many times along the way. So many times. That pennies make dollars and dollars equal $31 million.
So,
which is huge.
Back to that first event. Did you get over the 10,000?
We did. We were able to donate 50.
Oh,
see that on your very first one.
Very
Look at
first
that.
one, and
with no infrastructure, no EIN number, no checking account,
no 501c3.
Yeah, that's awesome. See,
it's technically saying I was an ambassador of St. Jude Children's
you
Research Hospital, which
you make it happen.
Probably
legal way.
Illegal.
It's fine.
So we went to St. Jude in November, donate the proceeds, and that's when I met Bryce Norwood.
So what month was the event and when did you donate the proceeds?
So August was the event, August 18th, I believe, and then we donated the proceeds in November. So a couple months later. In the meantime, I get the job offer to move to Houston, Texas to start working in oil and gas. Remember, I'm getting ready to graduate. I host a sporting clay tournament, my last semester of school. And then I get the job offer from the tournament, right? All these oil and gas people came and they saw me and they were like, who is this chick?
See, your one give back thing turned into this next career move that you're about to make.
And I remember being like, wait. They're like, no, you got to come now. I'm like, but I have like 2 months of school left to graduate. Like, no, it's now or we have to fill it. And I remember going to Crystal and my friends and even my dad. And as wild as people probably think this is, they all said, go. College, you can finish college later. Law school will always be there. Go. You need to go. And my family situation was really tough. And so that's what I did. I packed up a U-Haul. I had $400 that Michelle Hebert gave me. And she said, just pay it forward one day. And I got on I-10 by myself. And I moved to Houston, Texas. And I moved to an apartment right by my office because I was so scared to drive on I-10 that I could walk there. And I started working as the project services coordinator, managing inspection personnel in the field on pipeline projects which I was pretty damn good at logistics. That was just a natural thing, and I could talk to anybody. And so I had 120 guys working for me offshore or on onshore pipeline projects.
So your first big girl job, you're managing. Yay.
120 people.
Oil
22
field workers.
years old.
Oil field workers.
All field workers.
Just
Yes.
equivalent to truck drivers. That's a lot.
It was a lot. But I don't know. I grew up in that kind of environment. My dad worked 7 and 7. And so
Yeah. But it
those
was still
people were my people.
But it was still prepping you for what you do today.
Oh, yes. And then at the same time, so I'd met Bryce at the hospital. He unfortunately was terminally ill. He was 5 years old. He had Wilms tumor, which is kidney cancer. And his dad told us that they did not have a lot of time left, and St. Jude was sending them home. And his dream was to take his son whitetail deer hunting before he would meet Jesus. And we, within 48 hours, coordinated a private flight to pick him up in Louisiana, flew him to Uvalde, Texas, and for the next 5 days, me, Crystal, Jill, and Brittany Gass spent 5 very intimate days with this family, right? They don't know us. We don't know them that well. And I slept with that little boy on the main, grand couch every night. And I'll never forget, he'd wake up and he'd be on the Home Shopping Network. He's like, I want that. I'm like, okay, And his mom told me, he said, this is the first time in a long time he hasn't asked for his morphine. He's just, for some reason, he's very, very, very comfortable with you. And harvest his whitetail. We had the best time with his family. And he passed away on Valentine's Day, which was his 6th birthday. So pretty much right after that. I wear him every day on my arm. And I talk to his parents every Valentine's Day. They have 2 other beautiful kids. In fact, their son named his first son Bryce. What a beautiful thing. And their daughter just got a scholarship to play baseball or softball at UL. I mean, is that just kind of like, if you don't believe in God, I'm sorry. I can tell you God stories for days. So I launched the 501c3 with the help of Crystal and Holly and all the girls. We hired a lawyer who was a lawyer for Edie's. We hired a CPA who was a CPA for Edie's. And we write the articles of incorporation on my birthday, October 5th. And in 2008, we become a federal 501c3. And we're planning the second sporting clay tournament, and I'm working in oil and gas. And I start building my career here in Houston and building my network and my friends. And
so at this point, were you traveling back and
later.
forth to Lafayette to do these sorts of events? Because you hadn't started the Houston yet. It was just a
every
Lafayette.
month we had a board meeting at Jill's house. Y'all, our board meetings.
I'm sure there was a lot of booze involved in that.
Lots of red wine. Thank you, Jill. It was wild. And so we, again, had no idea what we were doing. We didn't then turn around and say, oh, let's go to nonprofit business school. No, we were winging it. We were figuring it out. We knew we had a gift, and the gift was the answer is no unless we ask. So we're going to ask. And we knew that there was a huge need in the childhood cancer community because the government was not funding research. It still only gives 4% today to children, right? And the community doesn't wear gold in September the way that you wear pink in October. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. That's a fact. And so there's a huge need. And so we knew we needed to continue to fundraise. And at the time, it was dumping into St. Jude. And then in 2017, once I had established a really successful career in oil and gas. I was in corporate sales. I loved my job. I was single. I see a huge billboard on the side of I-10, and guess what it says? Texas Children's Cancer Center. And I'm like, what
so
is that?
You had no idea that was even here?
Can you believe that I lived here for 10 years and didn't know about the Texas Medical Center? But I grew up in a small community, so what do you think I did? I stayed in my little bubble in the West Chase district of Houston. I didn't go downtown. I didn't, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I stayed over there. I watched City Center be built because I went to Randall's right there on the west side of town. Yeah. I didn't know the medical center existed. I mean, this is crazy. And so I call the hospital and I'm like, hi, can I speak to someone that wants to take donations? And they put me on the phone with Lisa McCoy, who is one of my best friends today. And before I know it, I'm sitting across
what
from...
What were you guys raising per year at this point? Sorry to interrupt. You went from 2007, 2008. So over those 10 years, you were gaining numbers every single year. And then you were just giving that to St. Jude's every year.
Correct.
Or was it after every event? It wasn't like a one-time donation once a year?
Yeah, after every event, because at that time we didn't understand that you could have a money market account and sweep it in there and make money.
Yep. I'm just learning. Hey, listen, they didn't teach me that in college. I'm just learning. It's just like 2 years
We
ago.
made $80,000 in interest last year by holding the millions of dollars that we raised instead of donating it out. The things you learn.
It's like a whole other event in there
15
too.
years.
Well,
Yes, it
interest rate-
is.
A whole other employee. Yeah.
Interest rates are
Exactly.
high right now, so
Yeah,
you can.
it's really good right
yeah.
now. Right. So at that time, probably a couple million a year, maybe 2 million a year. Right. So from 7 to 2013, we were growing. And then in 13, we started our San Antonio event. So we branched out to Eagleford Shell Oil. Right. And we raised $1 million in one weekend. And that's when
So
we
that was your
exploded.
biggest event. So that was your biggest. So before, what were your events bringing in?
Oh, like 200,000, maybe.
still pretty
I remember
good.
Houston was like 400,000.
And you
This
were
is
having-
before the days of the galas,
These
too.
is when I first met you, though.
Yeah.
So when I first met you, 2016-ish, each event you had about, 4 events a year, I feel like?
Yeah, about 4. So we had Lafayette,
So you're almost
Houston,
to $1 million
San Antonio,
a year.
and we had just started Ladies Who Brunch.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so was it the ladies' brunch, the first one at the
That's the
place
first one
on
you
Washington?
came to. Yeah.
Was that your
Hughes
first one?
Manor. Hughes, that was the second brunch.
Okay, I remember going to
But
the
the first
sushi place
brunch
talking to you.
Raised $10,000. Now our brunch raises $1 million. Is that
Crazy.
wild or what?
So even the San Antonio event was huge. It was like a year's worth of work in one event. Boom, it's exploding. Now everybody knows who Sky High is.
Right.
What was your next step from there?
Well,
This is about when you make the phone call to the hospital?
right. So I see the billboard, make the phone call to the hospital, and then I'm sitting across from Dr. David Poplack. And if you don't know who that is,
I've seen you take
he
pictures with
is
him, yeah.
like world known. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's changed the game in childhood cancer research and treatment, and he just retired. I love you, Dr. Pop. And he got a kick out of me because I'm still very much learning how to refine my edges as a professional. It's going to be something I have to work
refine
on
them
for the
too
rest
much.
of my
Please-
life.
Please don't ever refine them too
I
much. You
know.
got to have country.
But
okay?
I think I was probably a little bit more raw than I am today. And Dr. Poplack loved it. I said, and I can say this, okay. I said, "Oh, I'm just a coon ass from South Louisiana, Dr. Pop, that wants to save children." And I mean, I thought he was going to flip out of his chair, but he loved it. And all the staff was like, their eyes got this big, like, couldn't believe I had said that, right? And he loved it. And we've been best friends ever since. And it's who I am. You know, I was just the real raw Brit. And we wrote a $25,000 check to Texas Children's Cancer Center that December. And now we're in a $20 million pledge commitment with them and have built the first immunotherapy center for children in the country. And we're building training facilities in Uganda, Malawi, and Botswana right now in partnership with Texas Children's Global Hope. So from 17 to 2018, 19, I mean, in 2 years, we said 25,000, let's just do 20 million, right? I mean, but we started really gaining a lot of momentum. We branched out to West Texas, where your whole world is, right, Sean?
We're in every basin, but West Texas is the biggest one in oil and gas for sure.
Right. So, and then now we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, and then we opened up the major gifts division, which has been a game changer for our organization. So my mentor sat me down and said, "Listen, I know that you think asking people for $25,000 is working, and it has worked for a very long time. Because what do we do first? We ask people for $100.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got brave and you ask for $5,000, and you keep going up." He's like, "I'm going to teach you how to go elephant hunting." And I said, "Okay." And so in the past couple years, my mentor, who's been very successful and built, his success from the ground up from Port Barre, Louisiana, he basically taught me how to work with my marketing team, put the proposal together, and go ask for $1 million, right? But give them a term agreement, just like we have with the hospital. So if we have 10 years to raise the money, why aren't we giving our donors 5 years to give us $1 million? They already give you 50. What's another 50,000 a year? Or you know what I'm saying?
You're getting that guarantee every year instead
Getting
of
the
them
guarantee.
feeling so it's so much at one time.
So it's sustainable income, and we're giving naming opportunities on our floor. So now these individuals or families have
That's so
legacy
great.
gifts for their grandkids one day to walk that hall and say, "Oh my gosh, look at, Grandma and Pop's elevator bank that they built for these kids," right?
Yeah, I love
Through
that.
Sky High, or the bone marrow transplant unit that Kodiak Gas just committed to at $1 million. And so now my focus is on major gifts, and our marketing team is assisting with the administrative side of that. And so now my focus is elephant hunting, as my mentor says.
What single event has brought in the most money? Like, what's your record-breaking event? Was
Record-breaking
it a gala,
event.
Or was it a clay tournament or what?
It was actually a banquet and golf tournament last year, the Buckeye for Sky High event, which is a large oil and gas company. It's our corporate partner. It raised just over $1.4 million
On
Wow.
one event.
on one event with
And where was that event at?
It was
was downtown, wasn't
actually at the new Omni.
Okay,
Is
so
it
it was
Omni?
here.
Right. Like outside of Austin, the PGA course. There's a new PGA course that they built. Frisco. Omni Frisco. Anyway, did over 1.4 million. And what is really, really spectacular about Sky High for kids is our expense ratios are always under 20%. And that event was, I think, a record of 12%.
Wow.
So a lot of nonprofits are hosting all these big grand events, and they're spending majority of the donor dollar. And the donor doesn't question that
Yeah.
because, they go to one gala a year, but it cost them $400,000 to host that gala, and they only brought in $600,000.
So if somebody's going to donate, they need to donate to you because you have the highest margin on
We
return.
have a
to the
very high
hospital.
margin.
Direct donations are always best, obviously.
They are, and
But
we
when-
can earmark funds.
And when you do these events, I'm sure the hotels don't give you much of a credit, if anything, because that's what they use
No.
their ballrooms for. They really
Correct.
can't. That's
Yeah,
what, that's the whole purpose
venues-
of using it.
Yeah, they're
But if you
running a
can-
business too. We understand that.
But if you can get all the other stuff donated and give them sponsorships, I mean, that's the way
Yeah.
to go. But
We work-
12% is amazing.
Yeah, just like you, Gentry Kelly Cosmetics. You underwrite all of the giveaways at Ladies Who Brunch. Sean, how many times have you donated so much, amazing wine from your wine cellar that sells for thousands of dollars? But I'm not going to buy that and then put it in the auction. We have been very fortunate to have some amazing donors underwrite what it costs to host something of our standard, right? And the items that then sell to then come back 100% at Sky High. So for all those charity consignment companies that call me every week, we're never interested. It's a golden rule of mine.
Yeah.
We do not buy auction items, and we are working really hard.
You don't have to. You always have great auction items and so many great donors. And this all comes from your great communication,
Thank you.
building your networks, relationships, making people feel special. I mean, it's all of these things, equal up to the equation of success for you and what you've been able to create. And I know a big part of this too was you making that big decision. I think it was in 2019, 20? It was 20? To leave your full-time oil and gas job. That was your moneymaker. That was your...
It was.
I mean, that was how you
So
paid
did-
the house. She had 2 homes. You had 2 house notes at this point.
Yep.
For you to make a big move
Huge.
to leave this, to do this full-time, I think at some point, even for me when I started mine and from when Sean started his, you have to let go of one in order to make yourself more available for the other to really be able to cultivate and grow that. And I think that's another reason why you're so successful now, is because you're putting everything toward it. And I'm sure there's been many days that you're, part of you is regretful of doing that because you had to give up so much on a personal level to do that, for you and your family. But it's made such a big change in Sky High.
It has. And you nailed it. So today at lunch, I'm consulting for another organization, and I said, the older I get and the more perspective I put myself in, right? Because I work with these families. They asked me, like, how emotionally exhausting is it for you? And are you in counseling? Like, how do you do this? Because people don't realize, but I talk to the families at initial diagnosis very
It's
often.
a lot to
In
put
fact,
on you emotionally.
over the past week, we've talked to 5 families that have children that are all newly diagnosed, and we supply direct relief. So I am on the other end of people bawling, crying, people saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. Some react in a very different way. It's just, I'm on the other end of something that's the most horrible thing any parent can ever hear. And so I told him, I said, no, I don't go to counseling, and I cannot explain this, but God chose me for a reason. That's why every now and then when you do maybe question what he's thinking up there or why he made things the way they are, I know he's there, because there's no reason why I should be doing this work or I should be as passionate as I am, much less be the person that's put into an intimate position to be able to be with these families at this time in their life. But it is me, and that's our place. That's what we should be doing, right? Figuring out how we're going to help pay the fuel for a mom of 7 to be able to drive back and forth from Midland to Lubbock to make sure that she can go be with her daughter, because her husband's there, by the way, who had to quit his job in oil and gas to be with his daughter full-time 2 hours away. Okay. And that's what people don't realize. All these things occur. They couldn't afford the gas.
I couldn't afford the parking. I remember that's always stuck with me is what the parking is.
Can
The
you
med scanner
imagine?
per day. You can't go visit your kid because you can't afford the parking.
There's so much that goes into this, but yeah. So when I was telling them, I said, do I need a Range Rover? I'll never forget. When I was 30, I was like, ooh, when I turn 40, that's my goal. I'm buying a Range Rover. That was my goal. And I built a successful career in oil and gas. Some people do not realize I worked in oil and gas for 14 years. And today I'm like, you know what? I don't really need a Range Rover. My Expedition is exactly what I need. I can't take the Range Rover with me to heaven. So working in oil and gas and taking the pay cut I did is hard some days. But at the end of the day, I was put on earth to help people. That's my personal mission statement. And I prefer to know that we can pay fuel for a mom to go see her daughter when she gets a brain tumor removed from her head, okay, is more important than my car, right? Like, it's just,
Putting
again,
it back into
it's, yeah.
perspective,
So
yeah.
making the decision to leave oil and gas was very difficult financially.
When you did, was that right before the pandemic? And then,
In the middle of it,
yeah, so
June.
you leave.
June
and
of
then
2020.
How did the year for fundraising go during that time?
Oh, God.
How, I mean, what, I mean,
I
nobody
was
can
so
go to,
subject.
nobody can go to an
No, it's okay.
event. I mean,
That was
it's like, what do you
2020
do?
was a bad year for all of us, but you,
For everybody.
you especially, because not only did you give up your job, you were trying to get married, your wedding got canceled 5 times, and then no one's forking out any cash to you for Sky High at this point. Everybody's scared shitless.
Wait, and
that's a
everybody
weird time.
forgets, but we had just signed 2 $20 million commitments. We signed $20 million to St. Jude, and we signed $20 million to Texas Children's. By the way, no other nonprofit in the country this small and with basically no resources or very limited resources have ever signed $40 million in commitments. Okay. And we did it, and we were on a high. We had raised $6.8 million in 2019, right? We're staffing up. We're investing in things that we need to be bigger, to be better, to make more of an impact. And then the pandemic hits. And we create a short-term plan. I'll never forget. Our coach says, okay, we're going to 4-week short-term plan. Then that turned into 8 weeks. Then turned into 16 weeks. And then we were planning a stay-at-home gala.
I can't.
So
That
weird.
has a very intimate story now, but
I ran for LLC Woman of the Year one year. I will tell you that was one of the hardest commitments I have ever taken on, to ask people for money. That was hard. I'm not good at it. I hate
Yeah.
it.
And
I have daddy issues with asking for money. I don't like asking people for money. I cannot imagine you with these commitments, the pressure that was putting on you. I know you took a salary cut at this time too.
oh yeah,
All these things are happening.
I took a 20%
Nobody's writing a
salary
check,
cut.
and you're still out there. Knock, knock, knock.
Yep. I was asking people, and I was told by half of my board that it was very insensitive of
mean-
me to ask people for money. And I said, well, it's going to be real insensitive when I have to lay off my 7 staff members. But no, I'm going to take the pay cut. I'm not going to cut their pay. I'm going to take the pay cut. And we're going to be the first nonprofit in the state of Texas that goes back to hosting an in-person event. As soon as they say capacity is 30%, Sky High is going to be there. And I looked at my team in my living room. We're all masked up. I wasn't masked up. Masked up, had coffee. And I looked at everybody and I said, who's with me? Because we're going back to host in-person events.
And what month was this in?
I had the conversation with them in August. We hosted an event in September.
Is that when they opened it up to everybody? I don't even
That's when
remember
they opened up 30%.
What was your first event?
Armadillo
after
Palace outside.
Okay.
We had 300 people show up and we raised $500,000.
that? I mean, I think you got a
That's pretty
sweaty
good.
high five on
You
that.
like that?
That's pretty
You like
good.
that? Then we did
Well,
ladies.
Give Sean, don't leave me hanging.
Yeah.
Give
we-
Sean a high five.
Sorry, Sean. I love high fives, by the way. High fives and peace signs. And then we did Ladies Who Brunch. 325 women showed up. The
Okay, where was
news
the lady
caught wind. I was told I hosted a super spreader event. I mean, I got bad press, but then I got
I'm
good
like,
press.
No,
Yeah.
not funny.
We raised another $500,000. And so long story short, we hosted 5 events back to back to back. And we raised $2.6 million, saved the organization, saved the mission, saved 6 of my 7 employees. And the next year was the hardest year. 2021 was harder than 2020 because it was rebuild. God, it was hard. And then 22, I said, buying everybody a pair of hiking boots because we got to get back up this mountain. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to the top of the mountain and somebody just came behind you and kicked you.
And everybody's at the point now they're
Like,
just so burnt
kicked
out.
you and
Oh,
you
I know.
just freaking fell on your
Yeah.
face. That's what it was like. We had to climb back up. And now,
You're in a great place now.
2023 record year, $8.9 million raised. What's up?
Look at that.
Wild ride, let me tell you.
But
it's very hard.
How many days? So people talk, this
It's
whole
so
thing is
hard.
about business and success,
Yeah.
and that we all go through the same things. How many days did you just want to close the book during this 2021, I guess? How many days did you wake up and say, why am I doing this? How can I make it through this? Is it ever going to get better? And you did it.
Did it? Several. I mean,
There's been so many days.
I had an EOS quarterly yesterday, which is our all day of planning for Q2. And that's when you go through your issues. And that's where you have to be real transparent.
It's your
and
business
open,
counseling section.
Yeah, and open and honest. And I mean, look, we work in a very emotionally charged business. It's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. We host event after event after event. We work with 13 of 14 are women. So it's not easy, right? Everybody has different personalities. Everybody has different skill sets. Everybody communicates differently. I'm very direct. I'm deemed aggressive. Working on that, versus someone else who's an introvert and not.
Same way.
Sean's pointing at me because he knows I get the
Well,
same. I get
No,
the
no,
same
no.
thing.
She's
It's just-
accused of the same
Employees, it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hardest part
but also
of my work
you know,
outside of working with the families
Think about
with
anyone
diagnosis.
who's really great at things. You don't get by being a P word that we can't say. on
Yeah,
here.
you can't say that on here, but not today.
But
But,
I mean, you have to
can't.
be, if you want to create consistency and keep people on board and keep people excited, you're good like the Wolf of Wall Street in there, minus the cocaine.
Yeah.
You get in there and you empower your team
Yes,
to
I
keep
love
going.
inspiring.
And it's another one of your 5,825 gifts that I'm just adding up on here as we're talking. But not a lot of people can do that, right? I think that you're great with your team.
Thank
they
you.
may not always feel that way.
I
and they
really
may all
try.
have
I really do.
bad days where you piss them off because you look at them the wrong way, or you don't look at them at all and they think you're ignoring them, right?
Yeah.
But that's the industry that we're in, being around a bunch of women. I hate to say, I mean,
A good
men are emotional
leader,
too, but
it's not a bad thing to have high expectations, and that's the problem. Is people don't. If you're a great leader, you're always going to hold people to high expectations, and some people are just going to fall off, and so you don't need them anyways. So if they're going to have a problem with that and they're going to complain, and you got to let them go.
I know Sean always says I never regretted firing anybody too soon.
No,
If they're not right
actually
for your
that's
fit,
been
if
the
they're
biggest
not
mistakes
right
we've ever
for your
made
fit,
is just
yeah.
keep people too long, just because
Same here.
you really want it to work, and you're like trying. Look, we're going
Oh.
to
You know how
teach
much
you,
you
we're going to
invest in
coach
these
you,
people.
and yeah.
Well, and you
so-
personally, I don't know about y'all, but like I personally care. I love every single person
Like
that's
they're your
come through
family.
Sky High. I truly love you. I've helped, some employees budget. I've helped them find apartments. I've helped them with legal stuff. I've helped them with their kids.
Same.
We literally, because family is a core value at Sky High. But at some point, you have to understand that we're running a business. Our business is saving lives. And to do that, we have to buckle up, put on your boots, hold on to the steering wheel, and you either get in the car and go along for the ride or get out, like you said, right? And that's just a hard line there's a lot of gray.
To navigate, yeah.
Yeah, Grace just said that yesterday. There's a lot of gray in what we do. It's hard whenever, Brittany, you turn around and then you make a very business decision. Well, what do you want me to do? I mean, it's a business,
Yeah.
so it's hard. Managing employees is the hardest part.
In every job,
In
Business
every
it's the
job,
same
any
thing.
business,
Yeah.
I don't care what
I didn't
it
know what that
is.
meant when I had 2 or 3, and probably like you in the beginning.
Hands
When you
down.
had, team before, it's not bad. It's when you get a lot and then you become more and more distant with them because there's so many of them, and you want to be personal, and you can't. There's just only so much of you that you can give and still get the job done.
It's also the thing, if you have some A players and the other company has B players, like that's the difference of you being a huge company and then just remaining small. It's
Right.
just having a bunch of mediocre people. And so if you don't have high expectations, you're never going to be that big company that blows up, and you're always just going to be half-assed and mediocre.
But we're turning a page, or at least I am, as leader of Sky High for Kids. So we did have a lot of promotions coming into 2024, and we have a COO now, we have a CFO, we have a CMO, and in our session yesterday, more of our executive team wants to be more empowered. They want more ownership. They want to be able to flex their creative muscles. They want to own their division and not just get all this creativity from Britney and she's telling us what to do. I said, oh my gosh, in 16 years, I think I'm finally ready to let go of that vine. Okay, like, okay, great. I'm glad.
It takes a while though, because we're
takes so
micromanagers
long.
and
We
it's
are.
hours and we're founders and it's hard when
It's
you're the
so hard.
founder.
It's your baby.
And sometimes it's good to let go. And Sean's been telling me for a long time I need to let go, and just little by little I let things go. But I can
Right.
say now more than ever I have let go and let them come up with ideas. They're making reels and videos about promotions that they're doing. They were showing me in meetings today, and I'm just like, that looks pretty damn good. Let's
Isn't
look
that
at
great?
mine that I do with Amber. But empowering them and letting them stumble, letting them fall, letting them touch the stove when you say it's hot.
Yep.
They'll learn on their. That's how they're going to learn best anyway.
Exactly.
But it is really, really
It's so
hard
hard.
for that let go. But
Gosh,
to go
it's so
next level,
hard.
you have to also, and that's one of the things I wanted to wrap this up with today
Yeah.
is, I know you recently had a child. Of course, I know this. And that's something that you've always wanted to be a mom. You had to wait till you find your perfect man. You wanted to start a family. You guys had some challenges to get there. You did IVF. You had a baby. How do you make time and still be really successful at work? Manage your 300 to 400 pending emails. I got your auto response for this today that said, bitch. Oh, I can't say bitch because I bitch. B word. I ain't going to answer this. I'm really far behind. Hold on. How do you manage all of that? And I know, your assistant is out right now too. That's a lot. And I know I still see it on Instagram. You make time for your little baby because this may be your only one and you don't want to miss a second of it. How do you do it all and not have a nervous breakdown?
It's logistics. So a lot of people think the kid part is so hard. I honestly think it's one of the easiest things that I've ever done. You have just this amount of love that you could never understand, right? So the logistics part of me, which I thrive on, just added that into
your schedule because
the
you're
schedule.
big on your schedule.
Big on my schedule. Okay, if it's
Every
not on
minute-
the calendar,
every
it ain't
minute's
happening.
accounted for.
I know my husband hates it, but if it's on the calendar, it's not happening. So
will you please teach Sean? Can I pay you for a counseling session with my husband because he will not look at a calendar. He won't even look at my to-do list.
Sean, my husband hates
look
it
at my
too, so I
calendar.
understand. But listen, having a child is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. But it is a form of logistics. So I am pretty disciplined. I get up relatively early in the morning, anywhere from 4:40 if I'm going to F45 at 5 a.m. or 5:30 is the norm. And I do my me time, whether that's the dogs or coffee or whatever. And then I've got myself ready, and my routine is she's getting up between 6:30 and 7, have my time with her, right? So there's no email, there's
You
no
don't answer phone. Mm-mm.
Nope.
If I'm gonna have a morning coffee
Nope.
talk with her, it has got to be before 6:30 a.m.
Correct. I'm like,
Or
Gentry,
you
you
don't
want
answer.
to talk?
But you're good at not getting distracted too.
Yes.
You don't let the distractions at the phone ringing to stop you from what you're doing. I'm bad about that.
No. And I know I do a little social media here and there, and everybody thinks, oh, it's so much time. But truly, it's like 30 seconds, and then the phone's back on the counter, and I'm with Stevie. Focusing on her. Then
dancing in the kitchen, making breakfast. Yeah,
doing our thing. I make her a cheesy egg omelet every single morning, and I cut it up in little squares, and she just loves it. Anyway, so
I
we
wish
do our
Liam would
thing.
eat an omelet. He's not.
Oh,
He's
Stevie.
no protein, zero.
Loves it. Do you put salt and pepper though and
No,
seasoning?
he won't eat anything.
No, he won't.
See, I've been
tried to show
seasoning
him
her food.
I tried to show him a cinnamon roll yesterday, and he goes, "No, I don't like that." I'm like, "You've never had it." With
doesn't like-
this
no.
little Spanish, English accent. I don't like that.
Well, that's because you're
I
nanny.
know it's his
is
first
Spanish.
language
Exactly.
to understand, so he's got a
I know.
little accent. But it's funny because he's like, "I don't want it."
Yeah.
I'm like,
So
"You haven't tried it."
that's our morning time. Then Allie gets there, our nanny, which we share.
I
me
love
and
that.
our COO. She drops her daughter off, so Stevie won't be by herself
That's
because I
cool.
really wanted her to have interaction. It works out great for us, and it's affordable.
I think it's super helpful.
It's also affordable that way in
Cheaper
case
than
anybody's
daycare, yeah.
wondering. Yeah. So, and then the girls are with Allie, and I bust ass all day at work. And then when I get home, it's the same routine as the morning. I really have to tell myself, put the phone away, put the computer away. Like, it is definitely something I have to tell myself because it's ingrained in me to.
Oh, it's a habit. It's a bad habit.
yeah.
Yeah, Sean's getting it now too because
Okay.
he's getting habitual with this. He's going to make his music on Instagram.
Okay, so you're going to see how much time this takes, right? Or even just phone calls, right? So that's my time with Stevie. We have our routine. My husband cooks dinner every single night. So he fires up the grill. We play outside, throw tanks ball, do our thing. Then it's bath time. And for me,
Are you taking lessons? Because we need to start doing this more. 'Cause
Y'all you really
bad.
should.
We're going to blink and Liam's going to be 100.
yeah,
No,
you really
we,
should.
We are. We
Spend the
finally got the
evening-
house. We were stuck in a
Yeah.
hotel for just a little while.
Right, but now you got your house.
my
but
fault.
Oh, there was a lot
don't
on
eat
top
out.
of each other's space.
Y'all like to cook anyway. Make yourself cook.
Now that we have a kitchen,
We
we're
play
going to.
outside.
When
and
we're in
then-
Austin, we cook every single
Yeah,
day
and
out
then
there.
you know it's awesome. Bobby cooks and he cleans the kitchen, and while he's cleaning the kitchen, I go, and my
Bath
thing
time.
is I take a bath with Stevie. I love it. We fill up the bubbles from here to the ceiling, and we take our bath. At some point, obviously, she'll be too old, and I won't be able to take a bath with her. Now people are going to think I'm a weirdo, okay? And so that's our time, right? We do our bath, blah, 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 get out, and then it's, a little bit of Miss Rachel, and we sing and we dance or whatever. We play Taylor Swift Shake It Off in the morning. It's pretty fun, and she's starting to do. She's
Oh my
starting to
God,
do
it's
that.
so funny
It's
now.
hilarious.
Liam twerks now, and it is
Yeah.
the
Like, where do you learn how to
funniest thing.
dance like that?
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
but
know.
he holds his hip and
He came in
Does
one
like
day
that?
and he just started. I'm like,
Yeah, and then
So
and
YouTube?
then it's kiss daddy goodnight, and she goes to bed, and then honestly, I am probably sleeping by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I know if I push, my husband somehow can do this and stays up till midnight watching TV. I cannot. My body has to have the 7-8 hours to be able to be so productive the next day and be able to logistically handle all of it. And also by that time, I don't want to say it, but I'm exhausted. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Let's go to bed and then start over. And then because of my neurotic planning, I know now when I'm going to Tulsa, when I'm going to Midland, when I'm going to San Antonio, when I'm going to the CMT Music Awards. And so I get with Bobby on Sunday nights, and I'm like, okay, babe.
family meeting.
Yep, this is when I'm going to be out of town. Can you handle 4 o'clock? Because the nanny leaves at 4. Can you handle 4 on this day? Oh, okay, you can't. Okay, well, then I'll have to go to Midland this day. Today, I'm going to pick up Stevie, and she's coming with me to my evening event. And if I can't bring her, I don't go. So I make sure it's clear to people. If I can't bring my child, I cannot go. Because if I'm out of town,
But I think it's so good that you're
Working?
including her in that kind of stuff
Isn't
too.
that
'Cause my
awesome?
mom always
I think
included
so.
me in
But if I'm
everything.
in
I
town-
went everywhere with her.
I want to be with Stevie at night.
Yes, that's
So
great.
she's either coming
Or
or
I'm
I'm
not.
not going.
Yeah.
And I'm really working hard on those boundaries,
I-
like you said. And because I do have to travel for work sometimes. And
But what the things that make you great also is think back to the very beginning of this podcast when you were talking about watching your dad, watching your mom, and how hard of a worker he was. I think it's great for Stevie to see now, and I think it'll only inspire her to be like you. Like I watched my mom and how hard she worked. Funny enough, she owned a salon. And I own
Yeah.
a salon now, and I was such a tomboy, just like you.
Right.
But to watch how hard she worked, I mean, it didn't always work out, right? What her
Right,
business
but-
didn't end up making it. But just to watch how much she put into it gave me that drive too. And I think that's great for her to be seeing at a young age. with
yeah,
you.
I got someone gave me a book that said, you don't have to carry it all. That was the title. And I read like the first half of the book, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really into this. And then I realized, what do you mean you don't have to carry it all? Yeah, you do. Who's going to carry it for you?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but I wholeheartedly disagree with that. But here's the deal. You can do it all. I'm sorry. For all the ones that want to say you can't do it, yes, you can. I'm running a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. I'm launching a full-blown auctioneering business that is going to be very successful. I have a farm LLC now that is open in Louisiana with 90 acres of sugarcane, in case anybody wants any sugarcane. I've got rental properties now.
awesome.
I mean, and I have time to raise my child. I have time to do things with my husband. I have time to still be very social with my friends.
And not complain while you're doing it.
No, I think that's
No.
that's excuses. People
It's
make.
excuses. It's called discipline, and it's called proper planning. I still use an old school paper
calendar.
calendar.
Don't even tell me.
I
Oh,
am
God.
addicted to my paper calendar. I love it.
I give Amber
Yes.
so much crap about that.
Everything's on my phone too, but I love writing it down. I love looking at it. I even have a calendar on the
Yeah.
fridge. I love it. And listen, just plan properly, okay? If you're not disciplined and you don't get 7 hours of sleep a night and it's going to be harder, but I'm sorry, who's going to carry it for you? I did 2 loads of laundry this morning before I woke up Stevie, right? Like,
No
I'm
excuses.
sorry, you can do it.
Well, I really appreciate you being here today. I know
Thank
we've
you.
gone past your nanny time. Your nanny,
It's okay.
Hopefully she won't quit because I know she's a good
No,
one.
she's fine.
But I do want to say thank you for taking the time out, carving in the time out here to talk to Sean and I. Even though I've known you now for 8 years, 6, 7 years, whatever it is.
I learned a lot of stuff today.
Sean's-
I didn't know
Sean's known
all the
you for-
details. I just knew very, very high level.
know.
Oil and gas, then nonprofit. That's it.
Yeah, and she doesn't
No,
talk-
it's building Sky High simultaneously.
Yeah.
People might not realize that.
But I think your story's amazing.
Thank you.
You've been through a lot as a young child, a young woman taking big risks, moving to Houston, small town girl with population less than 10,000. I know there's less than 10,000 where you're from. Probably
Yes.
500.
Probably 500 people, actually. We got one caution light. Hey, we did get a dollar store.
Ooh, big deal. It's not $1 anymore. I read on the news today. It's like $7. dollar store went up, inflation.
Inflation.
Yep. But I'm really proud of you for taking those risks multiple times. Your ability to, ask, and for the greater good of everyone else, and being selfless while doing that. I think you're an amazing person. And you always make me cry.
I love you.
And I love you for everything that you do and for our community and for Sky High. You're amazing.
Thank you.
So for anyone who wants to also be a part of this, please tell them how to do so, where to follow you. She needs more than 12,000 followers. We're going to get her to 80 today. Tell them how to follow you, how to do direct donations, how to be a part of these events, how to donate products or become sponsors, all of those things.
All of the things. Skyhighforkids.org, SKYHIGHFORKIDS.org. I have to spell it out.
Okay, we'll spell it out for you and also put
everything is on our website, including a resources page for families. So if you do know someone that has been recently diagnosed or is in the battle now, even survivors, if you click on our resources tab, that is access to all of our direct services, whether it's fuel cards or groceries, or we send kids to the Super Bowl if that's their dream trip, if they're in that hard time of life. And so everything's on our website. Follow us on social media, Sky High for Kids. I'm Brittany H. Franklin. I love y'all. Thank you. Sean, I'm so glad you're coming into this wild social media world, but we have a lot to learn from you. And, the people we surround ourselves with are truly a part of why we are so successful, right? It's our environment and who we choose to be around, the value that's added and the value that we can give each other, right, is so important. And I've known you for a long time, and I know Sean has always been behind the scenes, but people should know that he's
Sean.
A rock.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's
you've
your
known him
rock.
outside of that too.
He's an amazing human being. He's extremely brilliant, and I'm glad that you're going to share so much of your knowledge with the world because it's important to help others, and you're going to do that.
Well, thank you. We love you, and we love what you're doing, and I'm not going to cry like Gentry, but
I don't cry very often. Sean knows. Sean's only seen me cry a handful of times. But Brittany always has a gift. That was the gift number 384. When I go to her events, I'm crying like a little B word the whole time, like a little baby. But we will do a follow up. I think maybe the next one will be about education.
Really?
We'll
That'd
see.
be
yeah,
great.
next time we'll go into me and Brittany will have a debate on
So
education.
it's
would
not
love
a
that.
bye forever. It's a bye for now.
Bye for now.
And
No,
she will
thank
be
you.
back again. Thank you guys all for listening.